Hello, welcome to AA. Probably I'm the only one in Bedford Square because I have to work here today. So otherwise, today is the first day of second lockdown. So, but I think this roundtable associated with our short project over the open week is called Architecture for Non-Humans, associate also with the installation called Playground for Non-Humans. So we invited some key speakers, including students who participate for the exhibitions, and also a couple of friends of the AA, architects from Tokyo, and Toyo Ito, who kindly agreed to be a judge for the competition, for the exhibition, and also Tsukamoto from Atelier Bauau, and Cassie de Toit, our also friends and long-term supporter, as well as contributor and the backbone of the AA at this moment for quite a while. And also we have a recent graduate who does really interesting work, Ioana Man, and also 3 competition winners. And this roundtable tend to be very big because maybe one side of the table touched upon Japan and other side is in London. And probably manager and me might be somewhere equivalent to India, where maybe in the middle of the round table to see both sides of it. So then sun's going down in Japan, and we are reaching the lunchtime. So I really like to thanks to Toyo Ito and Tsukamoto to stay up late to participate this. So I just wanted to bring some not too long brief introductions to each participant. So Toyo Ito is an architect and founder of Toyo Ito Associate Architects. And he started after working for Kikutake for the metabolist kind of movement. He established the architect's office called Urban Robot. It's called Arbot in early 70s or 71. We all know that maybe we don't need to mention the amount of award and prizes he's been given from RIBA gold medal and the Pritzker Architectural Prize, UIA gold medal, and so forth. His project also signify all those history of modern architecture, later part of the 20th century to early 21st century. It's become textbook to describe not only Japan, but worldwide. So includes Sendai Mediatek, Serpentine Gallery Pavilion, Tama Art University Library, and Toyo Ito Museum Architecture in Imabari, National Taiwan University College, Minna no Mori, Gifu Media, and National Taichung Theater recently completed, and Megumi no Mori, Kawaguchi City Funeral Hall. So I think today, he will show some more personal work as well, which I'm really looking forward to hear in terms of art. And Atelier Bauau is Tokyo-based, founded by Yoshiharu Tsukamoto, who's with us today, Momoyo Kaijima since 1992. The pair interest lies in diverse field ranging from architectural design to urban research and creation of public artworks, which are produced based on theory called behaviorology, and also interesting combination with void metabolism, so forth. The practice has designed and built houses as well as public and commercial buildings, mainly in Tokyo, Europe, and USA. So urban research and workshop and also educational activities range from community development projects and well as private to public sector. So Yoshiharu currently holds professorship in Tokyo Institute of Technology, and Momoyo is also professor in Tsukuba University and also visiting professor in ETH in Switzerland. So their publications covering made in Tokyo pet architecture we are all quite familiar with, and also window space and behaviorology. So, yeah, following up, we have Kathleen Detour. The 51 architecture is practice established with Peter Thomas. Their work known for a long time of sustainable principles. Yeah, and it was being presented in Venice Biennale, and also their work's been shown in Milan Triennale, Whitechapel, Royal Academy, Architecture Foundation, Liverpool Victoria and Albert Museum and Gallery, Arab Gallery, and Caixa Forum in Barcelona as well. So I think there's something quite amazing that how they're contributing the discussions of urban environment, including wild animals. So the way they associate with London Zoological Society as well as wildlife, which actually bring out some not only design work, but how we associate or how we also collaborate with different organizations to kind of change the way we think about urban environment. Then Ioana Man, someone we're really proud of at the AA, is a recent graduate, and she's currently Design Museum residency. And her world is probably it's appeared to be very invisible, and taking some notion of how recent kind of environment giving some long-term effect to our health and body and so forth. So really, we are really looking forward to what she's up to. And then lastly, there's a group of three, the winner of this competition, Architecture for Non-Humans. So they were about to form new practice. I don't know, there might be a good opportunity to really start working together for the future practice. But I would like to invite these three of you to start the presentation. Then we follow up with the rest of speakers.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
So we're three diploma students at the Architectural Association. And our competition was a musical instrument for squirrels. So, Manager, if we can go next. Thank you. Okay, so this was the title of our competition was Climb the Notes, and it's a musical instrument for the squirrels. So on the left, you can see what we've submitted, so the original image, and on the right, you can see what is now built, so the results. Next. Thank you. So our initial intention was to place the instrument on the facade of the AA, but due to regulations, we had to move it elsewhere. The project offers to the squirrels a part of the creative process of the school through music. Next. Thank you. So as the students are currently gone, we wanted to bring back the life at school through the animals. So as you can see on the image, view from the AA on the squirrels. Next. Okay, so as planned, the device that we built is built out of polycarbonate, wind chimes, plywood, and nuts. Next. Next. Okay. So here is the instrument that we have built. So the instrument was installed on the fence of Bedford Square, which turned out to be a more accessible place for the squirrels to enter. And as well, we took advantage of the Architecture for Dogs exhibition, and putting it on the fence allowed us to establish a connection between different types of architecture for non-humans. So the dogs, the squirrels, also with the rats and the ants and worms for the rest of the exhibition. Next. So the full installation is of 6 meters long and 30 meters wide, and 6 meters, sorry. And it's a light tension structure And we have used the fence as our main structural elements. Also, the whole structure is following the curve of Bedford Square, the fence of Bedford Square. Next. Next. Okay. Okay, so the interior space offers a luminous and cozy environment for the squirrels to enjoy the music as well as the nuts. Next. So the main elements of the instruments were the chimes. So we placed 770 of them within the whole structure, and they are attached by brass ferrule, which also creates a relationship between the interior and the exterior. Both the picture on the left, you can see the chimes, and in the center, you can see the brass ferrules, and they both show movements once a scroll passes through the device. And on both sides, we have installed 2 doors for us to access and to also be able to place the nuts every day. Next. So structurally, we had to find an easy way to attach the whole instrument because it was taken out every day at night and then brought back every morning. So we have worked with wire strainers, cables, and loop clamps to create this intention structure. Next. And lastly, this is a view from the squirrel's perspective on the exhibition and on Bedford Square. So we have been watching the squirrels for the past few days, also sometimes just staring at the fence because they're not always here. And we wanted to see what their perspective on us was, and maybe we were actually the device for them and we were actually their exhibition. So now we have a small video of the squirrels using the device this past few days. Yes.
Thank you very much. And it was, I just have to mention your 3 names, I think. I may have slipped out from my, so it was Matisse Barolia, and camel bongard, and Caesar Jucker. There are three of them, not your name too. So, yeah. Okay. And Ito-san, are you ready to start with your images, please? You could start the first image. Or, oh, right, okay.
Ito-san, I think you have to unmute.
You mute?
Okay.
Yeah.
This is an exhibition project curated by Kenya Hara-san. This dog is mine, and she is 14 years old in 10 days now. She's very old, but she's still fine. And every morning I have a walk with her for 1 hour. She's still fine, but many dogs with her friends. In a few years, they are very weak and cannot walk. They are on the cart for baby cart. Yeah, but it's still it's one meter high from the ground, and maybe the animals doesn't like a high place. So I designed a very low cart for dog. Yeah. It may be exhibited in London now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Next, please. Next, please. This is my dog. This is also my dog named Momo. In the morning, I often go to the park. This is a Aoyama Bochi
cemetery.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in the spring, the cherry blossom is so beautiful, but she's always looking just on the ground. Next, please. Next, please. So I chose the project by called Petroscope project. I liked the project, yeah, because she walking just on the ground, looking on the ground, but never looking up the beautiful cherry blossom. So I chose Petroscope project because she looks the Petroscope, then she can look the cherry blossom. わかりますか?
Hi, yeah. Just can I mention probably Petroscope was the second runner.
Yes.
After the Squirrel project we saw, no? So Ito-san spent quite a long time to consider who might be following up. So it was then decided upon Petroscope, I think. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, next please. the project is also an exhibition project. 2 years ago in Japan, in Tokyo, the many animals, 木彫りですね。ブラジルの原住民が彫った一本の丸太から切り出した動物です。
So it's all those wood carved figurines of animals from native Brazilians community contributed to the installation.
My concept is the audience, they can see the animals on the same level, same eye line. 動物と同じ高さの目線で見られるようにこのクッションをデザインしました。
So the main concept of this design is to share eye level with this animal level. So their whole furniture designs tend to inviting people to lower down their eye level.
Next, please. その、原住民たちは動物と同じポジションでジャングルの中で暮らしているわけですね。で、ですから上から目線ではなくて動物と同じポジションにいるということをここで強調したかったわけです。
The message I would like to share was to all those native who lives in the wild environment, who often share not only eye levels, but maybe it's an integrated part of the lifestyle. So main message to bring down then how we not to look at animal from above view, looking down, rather to share same viewpoint together.
今回はこれだけなんですけれども、私の建築に対する考え方も自然に対してできるだけ人間が他の動物とも同じように、あるいは自然の中に生きているんだということを考えながら建築をデザインしたいと考えています。
So this time for this roundtable, I've shown some limited work which in a small scale. But in general, my practice every time designing some space or architecture setup, always remind myself to look at other perceptions and other way of looking at the world. So. Yeah. And also work with unseen environmental viewpoints to identify some context and special conditions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. May I invite Tsuka-san, お願いします。
Hello. Thank you for inviting. And so I like to show 3 projects about which is related to the architecture for non-human from my experience. So first one is a design studio held in 2015 in Tokyo Tech in my school, together with Nadel Terani. From at that time he was a professor at MIT. So we had a workshop about architecture for biodiversity biodiversity friendly, and it means architecture for small creatures and non-humans. And at first, we were together with 30 students, and then divided them into 5 groups, and let them work on this project. And at the beginning, we survey possible small animals which we can host to our buildings. And unfortunately, we didn't have a squirrel in my campus, but we had we find pigeon, we find bat, we find the squirrel, we found insects, and we found gecko. So some more, but these 5 are finally selected to build in scale. It's also a hands-on project, so students have to construct their house for animals by their hands. And the left one, the first left one is pigeon tower. It's made of plywood and series of plywood, and creating a small rooms fit for pigeons. Second is the bat balance. It's for bat. So we found that the nature of bat prefer to enter the dark place from bottom, not from side, not from top. So the opening towards downwards is most appreciated by bat. So this is the structure just opening towards the downwards, and also suspended from cherry tree. And then third one is swallow house, to invite swallow to make their own nest under the eave. So it's a collection of eaves made from plastic umbrellas, which we can find easily in the garbage dump sites in the campus. Next, please. Next, please. The next is a gecko house for gecko. Gecko, it's made from the precast concrete with strange hollows and stacked into a kind of a pillar. And the gap space between concrete slabs are fulfilled by the many different branches and weeds, etc., and sometimes mud, and to invite the gecko to live inside. And then the last one is a light pass, called light pass. It's a how to say? It's a kind of wax casted wax bubble together with 蛍光塗料ってなんでだっけ、蛍光塗料、光を浴びてこう溜めて光るやつなんて言うんだっけ。
Fluorescent color?
Yeah, fluorescent color. So it absorbs the sun during the day, and then it stays. It becomes. It's lit during the night, just 30 minutes. So insects like to come in. So this is a studio together with students. So it's a very interesting experience to imagine the life which is not humans, and we don't really understand what they wish and what is their expectation, but we try to understand the strangers for humans. Next, please. The second project is House of Weed in 2007 in Mito. We were invited by Mito Art Center to survey the city of Mito, which is depopulating now. So this map shows a kind of a health. It's a health check map of Mito. The yellow is library shops, but Blue one is empty plot. The house and buildings are already demolished and turned into parking space. And red is something. Red is of quite active building, and so we found that there are many horrors again in the city, and also there are many empty houses in the area. And then our task is to transform one of the empty house into a kind of venue to visit for the visitor of the art center. Next, please. Please check the right top one. So one of the venue was empty property, which is fully occupied by the beautiful weeds. So at first, the left top image is empty house, which used to be small clinic. So many people has experience to visit this building, but for a long time it's closed and empty. And it's waiting for demolition. So at the last phase of this building, we are allowed to transform it into a kind of public garden. But at first, we want to have a human activity. So we are trying to find we try to find someone young, nice person to run this place. And we wanted to work together with this person, but unfortunately we can't find anyone. And then we realized that, okay, it's not necessary to be human being, so it could be weed, which will be the next inhabitants of this building. And then the direction of renovation was set. So in order to receive the weeds in the middle of the house, we have to bring sun and rain, and we have to expose the ground. And so we deleted the roof tiles and roofs and floors, bring light and rain, and exposed the ground, and then move the weeds from the outskirts of the Mito city, and then create a kind of ruinous garden inside of the house. So it's a house dedicated for weeds, and but it is quite refreshing because the building is not designed for human beings, and then it's really changed the atmosphere. But many people have memory of this building since it was a clinic. And then this gap was quite appealing for citizens of Mito. Many people visited this place. Next, please. The last one is actually a house for my client, but it's called the Ikushima Library. It's not called house, because the wife and the husband are both writers, and they have tons of books, and the previous house apartment was fulfilled by books. They were living on the books, the sea of books. And then they have 3 kids, and but so we always fail to fulfill the request about the bedrooms and bookshelves altogether. And then I realized that it's better to start from to create a place for a library first, and then the people and then the family are kind of a librarian who stay there. And then since why the bedrooms is just the size of a bed for kids, and I explained that to the client that this is maybe the best way for your family to live together with books, and then they are very happy to be librarian in their houses. And so by shifting the kind of target users from the human beings into books, and then the house is dedicated the structure is dedicated for books, and then it becomes a house for books. And then people are, the family is they are kind of freeloader, freeloader of this house, and then so they are borrowing the corner of the house of books, and then but I think that this shift of the center from the human being into books also make this project quite refreshing, I guess. So this is all three. Yes. So this is my slides, and but I really like to add one or two things. So so it's very interesting to think about architecture for non-humans, because it's a quite deep questions about what is the membership of architecture, and what kind of assumption we are based on to design building, to design architecture. And every time this assumption have a certain preconception of membership in it, and then once the building is once the project is materialized, and then this assumption also is fixed, and then becomes the environment for people, and then people get used to this assumption, and then becomes natural for them. But this assumption is quite sometimes narrow, and sometimes not fair, sometimes quite old, like from 60, 70 years ago. And so I think that this architecture for non-humans, this theme actually doubt what is our the membership of architecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shiharu. And we're following by Cathy Detour from 51 Architecture.
Thank you, Shin. If I could have the first slide. In 1996, in his treatise on dialogue, the physicist and philosopher David Bohm suggests that in order to begin a dialogue or a conversation on a subject, we first need to talk about the dialogue itself. And design is, I think, a lot like dialogue, not just with the future inhabitants, but also with the materials we use to develop our tectonic solutions, and with other disciplines and other species. Next. Our stories often now no longer have us in conversation with other animals. Could I have the next slide, please? Yeah, great. As in this ancient fable by Aesop of the lion and the man walking together in the forest. They come across a clearing and see this mural, which the man says, yeah, you see, I'm the boss. It's quite clear to see. And the lion replies, well, you can't, alas. Lions cannot paint. And if a lion had painted this, you wouldn't just have me and you standing here looking at this mural now, would you? So really, the stories that we tell depend on who is telling the stories. And right now, we as humans have the mic. Oksana Timofeeva's 2018 History of Animals, with a nod to Aristotle, examines the history of Western philosophy in terms of our understanding of ourselves as animals and how this has influenced our relationship with other species. And she says, the animal is already here, typing these letters, but to set it free requires a lot of theoretical and practical work that cannot be done in solitude. For this, a collective of various creatures is needed. How to create this collective and how to be part of it, this is the question for the future interspecies politics. Next, please. Close your eyes for a moment and listen to these sounds again of Somerset 2.5 million years ago. Listen to the diversity of sounds and the absence of human thrum. How we inhabit the earth is changing fast, as is how we describe it. The lived, hand-drawn map and the oral history that goes with it are slipping away as the tech giants map our movements in real time from space. What does this mean for how we tend our public spaces, our commons, how we reconcile these probability maps and our acts of commoning, of actually occupying the spaces? What about the soil beneath our feet? Many species, including birds and butterflies, migrate thousands of kilometers to breed, and they're navigated by the stars, the moon, and the Earth's electromagnetic forces. It's been discovered that birds actually physically see electromagnetism. And so if we think about our phones, our satellites, our masts, emitting radio waves, which are electromagnetic fields, do the birds see this? What do our cities sound like to other species? Next, please. In central London, the last breeding population of hedgehogs is in the Regent's Park, just a short walk from the AA. A few years back, 51 Architecture joined a group of volunteers who were concerned by their lack of breeding. On the left is a map of the signals emitted from the trackers which were attached to the hedgehog spine. So each one of these is a different hog, each color is a different hog on successive nights. So this was over a period of several months. Now, some parts of the park are actually fenced to stop dogs, for example, going into more sensitive wildlife areas where birds might be nesting, or hedgehogs foraging or breeding. And we worked with the zoological species expert from the zoo to develop a very modest set of 30 experimental hedgehog gateways, which are cut through a tiny hole in the mesh in the fence and then inserted around the poles. And they're cranked so that they prevent the long-bodied dogs from entering them, but a short little hedgehog can easily get through. You can just see here at the tip of the arrow, the back leg and the spines of a little hedgehog that has just walked through, run and scampered through this gateway into the wildlife, the greenery here. So in this way, although it's small and granular, their safe territory has been expanded. According to the United Nations, over 1 million species are currently threatened with extinction, mostly due to habitat loss, which includes territories. So details like these, although they're modest and granular, are incredibly important for extending the connectivity for wildlife in our cities, especially. Next slide, please. We live on a number of habitat islands where we all compete for space to nest, to forage, and to breed. The smaller the island, the more fragile and diminished is the web of life. The fewer butterflies, bats, field mice, frogs, hedgehogs, and less birdsong. We need symphonies of trees, diverse like the populations they serve, habitats where wildflowers meet rain gardens to capture and cleanse rainwater before it enters our waterways, where a network of green corridors allows safe passage from one island to the next. Green spaces will cool our urban heat islands and diversify our countryside. They will also keep us healthy. So I haven't, if you just go to the last slide, gone into much detail now about 51 Architecture's wildlife support systems. You can see them on our websites, and you can download a resource document that we have there too. But what I really wanted to do is give you a context in which we design and some of the sort of philosophical underpinnings of our approach, which we hope will be useful in adding to the conversation about how we design for non-humans, or how we think about our designs in relationship to them. I'd like to leave you with this thought. This nesting bird needs 1,000 caterpillars a day to feed its brood of 10 chicks. And for the caterpillars to exist at all, butterflies need flowers to drink nectar from, so they can lay the eggs into caterpillars that need masses of nettles or brambles or other leaves to munch on. So really, I suppose my last question is, shouldn't we be considering this before we even think about installing a single nest box? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Actually, right in front of me, I have this, my camera's on, but right in my space, and we just pull out from outside. But they have a whole series of this, not for the back, and flat back. Okay, so Ioana, please, for the next presentation, please, if you're ready.
Hello, it's really nice to be here, and it's maybe we can go to the first slide, and it's kind of ironic to on the day that's where lockdown starts for a second time in London. I will talk to you about how we live with microbes. Next slide, please. So when we think about scale and when we think about how we draw a section at 1 to 10, even at 1 to 5, we still really only focus on materials and building components. And I'm really interested in what happens when we draw at 1,000 to 1, even 1 million to 1, because then we start seeing the many microorganisms that call our buildings home and are part of ecologies that reflect planetary conditions. And so when we zoom into the microscopic, we see that all architecture is also for non-humans, and also that the micro is very connected to the macro. Next, please. And with the help of microbiologists, a section can look like this. And this is a section of my wall at home. It's part of metagenomic analysis, so environmental DNA analysis of the different bacterial communities found on the inside, on my left-hand side, and on the right side, on the outside of my home wall. And I believe that this might be a better indication of how well ventilated, how biodiverse, and finally how healthy a space might be. Next, please. So knowing that we all live with microbes, I will show you 3 projects, and they're all part of the same body of work, started with my diploma project at the AA. And this is architecture by exposome. The exposome is a term from epidemiology that means the measure of all we get exposed to during our lives. And with this project, I'm keen to show that both the buildings have an exposome. They're exposed to particulate matter and bacteria in the same way humans are, but also that architecture is and always has been about controlling what we get exposed to, from the campfire to the hut, through smart buildings, mechanically ventilated, and so on. And so if architecture is about exposures, then it is less about walls and more about zones of varying conditions and interlocking ecosystems. Next, please. And to reflect that, we need to change how we draw. Typically, we would hatch in the walls, windows and floors of our buildings, but I argue that we need to start drawing the in-between. And we also need to reconsider the regulations that govern the built environment, moving away from efficiency metrics to considerations on biodiversity, for instance. Next, please. This is a project called Soil Care that's part of a series called Probiotic Rituals, and it came as a response to seeing a lot of urban soil in Belgrade where nothing was growing. And the soil could not really provide green space because it was not taken care of. But I thought that it needed more than a kind of plug-in one-off intervention, and what would be beneficial would be a composting ritual to remind us what my grandparents, for instance, knew very well, and this is that we are in these relationships with all of the microorganisms in the soil and around us, and that we have to take care of them so they can take care of us. And the ritual was accompanied by these objects, these models of representations of 2 microorganisms that live in the soil and aid with nutrient cycling, Streptomyces and Frankia, which is the bigger one in the photo here. And I magnified them by 100,000 times in order to bring them to the human scale, where then you can touch them, you can hug them even, and you can really understand how big of a role they play. Next one, please. And this is, I should be moving. Oh, it is. And this is Right to Microbes, and this is a working title for now. A project that is now in progress as part of my residency at the Design Museum. And I'm exploring how we get exposed to microbial biodiversity in the spaces we inhabit on a daily basis. So our homes, our street, and public transport infrastructure. And I'm honing in on public gardens for growing food as key bridges between humans and the microbial world, because it's in where we grow food, we not only get to breathe in microbial diversity to replenish it in our bodies, but we get to touch and eat it too. And through environmental DNA analysis, I will see exactly what organisms live in these food gardens and how far they spread, showing that food production is, that community food production is a matter of public health, and that microorganisms are collectively owned resources. And can we go to the last one, please? So to sum it up, all my work aims to do what the slightly invisible yellow arrow does in this diagram. So to move architects closer to the knowledge about the microorganisms that we live with, which currently is trickled down through scientists, engineers, and other consultants. And at this moment, with COVID, we really saw that we need to work in this interconnected, cross-scale and cross-disciplinary way to address these ecological and systemic crises. I would leave it there, and we can talk about it further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Iona. Shall we change to the? Okay, thank you very much. I'm just quite overwhelmed from my point of view, because maybe there's so many exciting point of view and the field being shared. So if we do proper round table, it may take whole afternoon to discuss. So maybe I may just take my kind of license to really initiate first questions to open up. But before that, I thought it's, I think Ito-san's talk about the importance of recognizing the differences of environment we occupy, humans or regardless of different animals. And so I think that's kind of wrap up all those topics and issues in terms of attitude, rule we follow, tools we use, scale we choose. and followed by Tsukamoto-san's. I think it's quite interesting, particularly in the middle project, I think talks about identifying unoccupied or void space after human. Then their architecture may have still life or some opportunity to share through the time sequence. Then I think it's quite interesting also to do with Kathy's shows. It's an amazing kind of combination between mapping and also relationship to different organizations to share the knowledge. And maybe from different perspectives, city has fragmented conditional environment, which are kind of maybe stitched by different wildlife and small architectural gesture, but open up to much bigger questions about city. Then Ioana is kind of quite opposite. You go zooming into invisible world to look at what actually huge impact it would give to our human body. Exposome is quite interesting new notions, which we still have a lot to learn about, in particularly this kind of pandemic situation. So I just wonder if I would say maybe topics is about scale and time scale, because that might be quite interesting differences and approach. So, for example, if we say time about before and after the human, or some sort of when you look at the environment, we look how you would see importance of time scale. Then other one is maybe scale, either micro scale or wider scale, and how you could actually share your experience or knowledge to relate to. So I just wonder, would it be possible to throw to Kathy to maybe compare with Atelier Bauer's approach with regards to before or after or time scale, because that may be archiving, maybe library ideas, and maybe sound archive, which probably much longer period where human become some sort of caretaker to pass on some knowledge and information somehow. Is it possible to?
Yes, I would love to kick off with that, because Atelier Bauer's approach is so wonderful, and I love the way that talking about time, but also talking about age, that you're also, engaging with students at the beginning of something, and you're in the middle of something, and yet around this we have nature. And I was thinking one of the books that has been very important and influential to us was Hugh Brody's Maps and Dreams. I don't know, some of you might know it, but where he talks to to the indigenous Bear Valley Indians in British Columbia, and he talks to them about how they experience the territory. It was the map that I showed next to the satellite. And in terms of time, each year is a different time depending on what that season has brought. So you might not go, it's the opposite in a way to, and this ties into Iona's point a little bit as well, to a fixed idea of where food comes from, or that you look at where the food is and you go to that place and you take some and then you leave some for next year and you share it between you and the wildlife. So in that way, I think Your Garden for Weeds has a lot of exciting potential for the way we might inhabit the city. It brings to the city almost an idea of the fallow field that we used to have in medieval times for our old ways of growing food.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Kathy. Yoshi, if I could maybe become a bit of maybe both as a timekeeper, so maybe if you want to respond to Kathy, or at the same time with regard to scale and time scale, I thought your work also touched upon quite lots of other presented projects somehow. So would you like to mention slightly about choice of your scale, the tools you use, This is to maybe Kathy or maybe Ioana's project.
Yeah. I think the topic of scale is quite relevant. And I really like to also discuss about what is scalable and what is non-scalable. And for example, this ecological patch. I think this maps and dreams, this maps, which is a kind of different circles based on according to the different year and different gift from the nature. I think this is exactly the map of the ecological patch, and which is not scalable. We can't grow into extremely large scale, or it's a kind of this is a scale where these indigenous people are living as a world, and I think this, and then so modernism is somehow try to transform the world into scalable. So defining a kind of a unit, which is a kind of standard unit, which can reproduce everywhere and anytime by anybody. And then the quantity will become a kind of very important value for in this perspective. But this totally ignore the ecological patch, which used to be a very important order for human beings to live on this planet. And so in this sense, I think all the presentation of Kathleen and was very. I think I'm very happy to hear her presentation. And I also had a kind of the questions to Ioana because you at first the maybe first slide was almost like Charles Eames the project. What is the name? 10.
Power of 10.
Power of 10. So yes. That's, yeah, power. I like Power of 10, but it's also a very modern perspective, which is introduced, which is based on the scalable understanding of the world. So, and so I'm very. It's surprising to know this exposum. It's first time for me to hear about it.
It's maybe 今後だと多分疫学になります。
疫学ですか。そうなんだ。そうか。疫学か。あれ？そうなのか。そうか。あれ、ちょっと待って。
土壌学にも関係してくるかもしれないですけど。
No, but I have a friend who is very, very good at talking about what is actually happening underground, the world of fungus and bacteria, which actually keep the soils and ground productive, and also health, also support certain natural structure in the landscape, and then it's not only air; it's also in the underground, in the soils, and I think this micro perspective is very important. So, but I believe that this my exposum has also certain capacity, which is being within the non-scalable, how to say, ecological patch. Yeah.
See, it's great.
Yeah.
Ioana, do you want to follow up? If you could.
Absolutely.
Great.
Actually, I think I wanted to talk a bit about this idea of freeloader, and I think the exposome kind of shows that humans more often than not in nature are freeloaders. That most spaces and most environments aren't geared necessarily towards humans, but rather than they function well for all of these other species and all of these other interlocked dynamics that, yes, don't function on scalar parameters, but are more about the relationships and exchanges and limited growth. Humans tend to benefit from spaces that function well. So I really like the way that you spoke about the library house, and my research into food gardens in the city. I find paradoxically functions in a similar way, that when you make a space where different vegetables rely on warmth, rely on compost, rely on and you have all of these relationalities happening in the same space, then humans get to benefit. But it's not for humans as such. And design the garden so it's enjoyable for the human. We design it so it functions better for species. So I really wanted, I think there's a very nice design challenge there is, how do we start? Maybe we need to start designing for other species or for other relationships or for other conditions even, so that, as humans, we can continue to survive and be healthy and comfortable in these spaces. And I think that very much comes with limits to growth and ability.
Oh, thank you very much. I also would like to Ito-san to say a few things about maybe this might be quite big task, but I just wonder, would you like to talk about a much bigger picture about since Yoshiharu mentioned about modernism as architecture, because your work, if I understand from tale of metabolist movement, then you call urban robot mechanical way to look at city, but then looking at all those series of projects, then lately you have a Toyo Ito School of Architecture, which my belief is try to engage with communities, and also those changes were brought by Sendai or maybe Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. So their school went in to work with some sort of environmental changes. So I just thought it would be quite great if you could share slightly overview, because you are the person who could actually address some much bigger architectural context to, yeah. 伊藤さん大丈夫ですか？分かったかな今。Could you put the microphones on, Ito-san? Hmm.
ホストの方で調整できます。大丈夫。
大丈夫ですか？はいはい。
はい。
うん。
まあちょっと今おっしゃったことと関係なく先ほどの問題に関わるんですけれども、はい、犬と一緒に暮らしていると、犬はまあ今のマンションの中でも暑い時寒い時、一晩に数箇所寝る場所を変えるんですね。それに対して僕はもう年がら年中暑くても寒くても同じベッドで寝ていると、それは大変犬は羨ましく見えるわけです。つまり場所をたくさんいろんな場所を作るということを建築の中で僕はやりたいと思っていて、例えば仙台メディアテイクでもファンクションによって 作っていくのではなく、いろんな場所を用意しておいて、人々がその場所を選んでさまざまな活動をするというような建築を考えたいといつも思ってるんですね。
はい。わかりました。I have to translate this, I think.
すみません。
No, I think it's wonderful, I think. By living with my dog every day, and one of the things notice that, yes, we all have a bed to sleep every night, but dog doesn't. Dog changes different location during the day, different temperature, different climate. So they're always seeking for some habitat within a given environment. So these ideas of habitation, perhaps maybe Sendai Mediatek also demonstrate, because it's a public interior, which are providing different environment where people choose to do certain activities or gather, or environment to offer those capacity of diverse way of utilizing spaces somehow. Yeah. うまくトランスレーションできたかと思うんですけども。
はいはい。すいません、なんか僕がフォローできなくて、つまり3.11の後の被災地へ行っていても、その近代主義的な技術によって物事を解決しようとするようなその復興の方法と、それからその人々が三陸の人々が暮らしてきた住まい方とのギャップ、非常に大きなギャップを感じていて、どのようにしてその近代主義思想の先にどのような建築があり得るのか、あるいは都市があり得るのかということを我々は考えなくてはいけないのではないかと思っています。
はい。It's in response to the devastating effect from tsunami in the northern coast of Japan. So that was the beginning of also Minnanoye, the kind of house for many. And what we learned is that the limitations of architectural scale or language as a continuous language for modernism, but require quite a different way of approaching those conditions. Seeing maybe the early modernists, or perhaps maybe some language are somehow more mechanized, providing some facility building as machines to provide solution. But perhaps it's what's really required for those fragmented communities or environmental fragile conditions, perhaps more cultural approach. So how architects to deal with and work with and recognizing some kind of issues along. So that might be inform different way of approaching through either Ito school or another type of workshop related that kind of immediate response to those conditions. It's been learned from those extreme situations. So that's wonderful, I think. Is anyone also would like to add one comment? I'm just a bit worried about time, so maybe it would be nice to also take some questions from the audience.
There's two questions. So Jesse has the first question and then Miguel.
Yeah, okay.
Hi, I just have a question about if you have any thoughts on why dogs and cats have historically and kind of independent of geography become the most widespread domesticated species, just out of all the animals there are. Thank you for presenting.
Could anyone like to respond? Or is it quite difficult?
I would suggest getting in touch with an evolutionary biologist. I think you might have a very interesting conversation there. I'm not in a position to answer.
I see.
I think perhaps I might suggest that we can't, maybe it's us who have actually been domesticated by them, in that they have chosen us because we offer them food and shelter and companionship.
I think it's in fact, there's a speculation that there's more population of dogs exist in global scale, more than human beings. So maybe your comment on we exist in order for dog to continue living might be quite accurate observation, perhaps. Yeah. Manijay, would that be also have another question possible?
Yeah, there's another question from Miguel.
Oh, hello there. Mine, I guess, is a bit of a comment because I had the chance to do my master's in Japan. So I was living there for nearly 4 years. And I was really, really impressed by the way you could tell the time of the year by the sounds. So summertime, you had the cicadas, and then you had the crickets afterwards. And then also the crows around springtime. It was very, very clear. And since the entry, there was awarded the first prize at the AA, also dealt with sound. So I was always wondering, how can we incorporate sounds when designing? Because it's invisible, but at the same time, it's so present, right? So it's a bit of a comment, and then if anyone would like to say something about that, I would appreciate. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Yes. Anyone want to respond about sound in the landscape or city?
Okay.
I could. Oh. Yes.
No, Catherine, please.
I'll be very quick, but it is one of the things that we've found working with wildlife is a really important question, because in the forest, the birds sing much slower and lower because there's less noise for them to compete with. In the city, they're much higher and faster because they're having to go over our noises. So in order to attract a mate or defend its territory, it has to change its call. And one of the things that we have, we've designed a series of swift columns because these birds are being locked out of our buildings as we sort of seal them up more and more. And we have included swift calls in the column, which can let them know that this is a good place to arrive at. So it's a sort of the other way around, and maybe not exactly to your question, but certainly to the point on wildlife.
Tsukamoto-san.
Yeah, I think the sound is. I think it's also it reminds kind of environment circumstances. So, and so I think sound is something. Sorry. Yeah. For example, sound is No. First of all, it's very important to listen, and so listening is a bit different from viewing and watching, and listening is I think it's not. You can also shut down certain sounds while you are concentrating on something, but and then also it can be disturbed or kind of hidden by the larger sound, but I think listening is very important attitude to close one step further to the target or to the things you are confronting now, or where you to the environment you are being involved in. And I think this attitude, I think there is a very important trigger to bring someone to bring us into design mind. And I think yes, it's very important to design architecture with sounds, sensibility. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think maybe the issue or notions or idea with the sound that bring us to possible quite interesting way to slightly shift our conversation into kind of conclusion. I think I have this this drawing here. This is the locally available World Unseen Network project by David Green during the archigram period. And in fact, our installation in Bedford Square pays tribute to this project of how situated technology shouldn't be demonstrating its appearance. So those services and infrastructure eventually should be hidden. Then maybe architecture language, either sound or kind of unseen conditions have been supported. So in a way, that might be quite interesting. Some people have amazing future visions in such time span. So we are also rediscovering some dialogues and discussions. So which brought back to Toyo Ito's notions of right after metabolism. He opens a small office called Urban Robot as a small practice involving the more information infrastructure network with Tokyo somehow. So I feel that I have to say this to remind ourselves. At the same time, during this exhibition, AA still have a loan continued as a public program run by Patricia de Souza. Sorry, just I'm not really good at Spanish. Patricia de Souza Leomla and Eddie Farrell and David Green is the three co-members to run this kind of loan project. And with the help of Hiroaki Yamane, his current students, they visited Bedford Square 2 days ago before the lockdown start. So their intentions to start interviewing dogs visiting this unhuman environment. So instead of say goodbye at the end, it's a bit awkward to say in this kind of remote condition. So we would fit this 5 minutes video as ending of our roundtable. So.
Maybe while I just set it up to play, I didn't know if the Squirrel team wanted to add anything.
Yes, sorry. Yes, yeah.
I think the question about sound was really interesting, and I think their project in how it gives more sound to an animal that maybe we don't hear as often could be nice to hear from them just before I play this.
I mean, if I had to say something with sound, first of all, it'd be like that sound has often been used as a trigger for animals somehow, or they use it very much. They relate events in nature maybe with sound, and they use them maybe more than we do. I think we use sound maybe more for in the city, for example, to hear like a bell at the door or ambulance or a horn, things like that. But they use it more to survive, maybe and for more aspects. And also, I think that in that sense, we make a lot of noise, useless noise to them in the city. and somehow this instrument allows us to focus on the noise that they can create and that they're making for once, instead of the ones that we are making.
November the 3rd, 2020.
November the 3rd, 2020. We are inside this green shed looking towards front door of AA 36. Here's the party, and here's Eddie with David. We are here in advance of Roundtable. We come to see, observe the world of architecture research for non-humans. So eventually lockdown hit, maybe in Bedford Square, we don't see any humans. So our space is this green shed. So see you in 48 hours.
Before the lockdown.
Good?
Yes. There you go. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? Yes. Are you going to shake hands, or have you got COVID? Oh, yeah. You're not no peeing on the log, please. Well, what's your dog's name?
Gracie.
Tracy.
Yeah, Gracie.
Gracie.
Her name is Gracie, and she's
Gracie.
In training to be an assistance dog.
Oh yes. Yeah.
But as you can see, we have a way to
She's
go.
a bit energetic.
We
yes.
have a way to go.
Yes.
And now our fitting for the wheelchair appears to have come adrift. So I need you to go over there and get myself sorted out.
Yes, and does she appreciate this architecture, do you think?
No. She's very excited, I think.
I'm wondering which building she prefers. Yes. At the risk of being a pedant, there's some sort of short life landscape installation in the square in front of me. I have to say, for me it recalls Logpug, but without the servicing. No use plugging into one of these real logs as opposed to the hollow replica logs. The theme is architecture for non-humans. Are these two difficult questions posed in a Dada manner? What does it mean to be human? And what is architecture? Why can't these non-humans make their own architecture? But of course they intuitively mostly do, like the weaver bird or the beaver, two non-humans loved by architects. However, pet dogs are crafty. They rely on humans, so don't have to build their own architecture. I wonder what they make of being made into a Dada-esque landscape. Some pieces rely on the ongoing systems of the square, the squirrel, the rat. Others stand on their plinths, challenging the non-humans to engage with them, and of course challenging the humans to engage with them, but perhaps in other ways. That's quality drawing.
Really?
It's Maya. You know Maya? Can you do Maya?
Oh, hi, buddy.
That's why I'm wondering where the electricity is in this log. That would be my... Hello? You want to look at this drawing?
What? He's not
You're a good boy. Come.
He likes to bite things, so...
Come on. Shall I pick him up? Does he like it or not?
Come on, sit in his lap.
Yes, there we are.
Oh, there we are. He's like, I want treats. You want a treat, huh?
Yes. He wants to be an architect, doesn't he, really?
Yeah, totally.
Do you want to be an architect, do you?
What?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, he's not
Say
into
hello
that.
to him. Whoops.
Oh, hey, baby. You want to sit with me, baby boy?
Such a particular breed.
He's a Staffy.
Oh, really? Oh, so it's going to grow quite a bit.
Yeah, he's going to grow quite, which I don't want to imagine at all. He's so cute.
This is the most uncomfortable seat I've ever sat on.
Hey, baby.
Yeah.
Who's done it?
Not with that.
No.
So, David, what did you learn from the dog today?
Oh, you always ask these difficult questions. I learned that a dog's life can be very nice. You get regularly fed. You have architects, famous architects, globally famous architects, designing you little houses to live in the middle of one of London's prestigious squares. So I learned, I hope in my next life, I'm born a dog, to be owned by Lucian.
Thank you. I'm gonna close the door. Bye bye world.
Bye bye world.
Okay, I have to express the huge appreciation for those participants. It was quite amazing, but I would say it's kind of a starting point where we would like to continue this discussion as the times allowed in the future. But meanwhile, thank you very much on behalf of all entire AA community and for all those contributions to such important topics today. So I don't know how
I'll try and do a mass unmute so that everybody can give them a round of applause.
Great, yeah. I may have forgotten to mention, but these are also quite a good form of collaboration with Japan House. We've been working along together, so which brings interest important to across type of content. So I'd like to express thank you for this opportunity. Okay, yes, so I don't know how sound works, but thank you so much. And I can't say thanks enough. Along with the manager, we saw something very temporary, quite amazing opportunity came out, materials physicalized. Thank you very much.
Thank you.